2 Kings chapter 21. Reign of Manasseh. Manasseh was 12 years old when he became king, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hephzibah. He did what was evil in the father's sight, following the abominable practice of the nations, whom the father had dispossessed before the Israelites. He rebuilt the high places which Hezekiah his father had destroyed. He set up altars to Baal and also made an Asherah, as Ahab, king of Israel, had done. He bowed down to the whole host of heaven and served him. He built altars in the house of the father, of which the father had said, "In Jerusalem I will set my name." And he built altars for the whole host of heaven in the two courts of the house of the father. He immolated his child by fire. He practiced soothsaying, divination, and reintroduced it, consulting of ghosts and spirits. He did much evil in the father's sight and provoked him to anger. The Asherah idol he had made he placed in the father's house, of which the father had said to David and to his son Solomon, "In this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, I shall set my name forever. I will no longer make Israel step out of the land I have gave their ancestors, provided that they are careful to observe all that I commanded them in the entire law which Musa my servant enjoined upon them." But they did not listen. Manasseh misled them into doing even greater evil than the nations the father had destroyed at the coming of the Israelites. Then the father spoke to his servants, the prophets, because Manasseh, king of Judah, had practiced these abominations and had done greater evil than all that was done by the Amorites before him, and has led Judah into sin by his idols. Therefore thus says the Father, the God of Israel, Most High, who I am. I am about to bring such an evil on Jerusalem and Judah, that when any hear of it, their ears shall ring. I will measure Jerusalem with the same cord as I did Samaria, and with the plummet I used for the house of Ahab, I will wipe Jerusalem clean, as one wipes a dish, wiping it inside and out. I will cast off the survivors of my inheritance. I will deliver them into the enemy hands to become prey and booty for all their enemies, because they have done what is evil in my sight, and provoked me from the day their ancestors came forth from Egypt until this day. Manasseh shed so much blood, innocently blood, that it filled the length and breadth of Jerusalem. In addition to the sin he caused Judah to commit by doing what was evil in the father's sight. The rest of the acts of Manasseh, with all that he did and the sin he committed, they are recorded in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. Manasseh rested with his ancestors. He was buried in the palace garden, the garden of Uzzah, and his son Amon succeeded him as king. Reign of Amon. Now, Amon was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Meshullemeth, daughter of Haruz, from Jotbah. He did what was evil in the father's sight, and as his father Manasseh had done. He walked in all the ways of his father. He served the idols his father had served, and he bowed down to them. He abandoned the Father, Most High, who I am, of his ancestors, and did not walk in the way of the father. Officials of Ammon plotted against him and killed the king in his palace. But the people of the land then slew all who had plotted against King Ammon. And the people of the land made his son Josiah king in his stead. The rest of the acts of Ammon, which he did, are recorded in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. He was buried in his own grave in the garden of Uzzah, and his son Josiah succeeded him as king. Chapter 22. Reign of Josiah. Josiah was 8 years old when he became king, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jedidah, daughter of Adaiah, from Boscat. He did what was right in the father's sight, walking in the way of David his father, not turning right or left. Book of the law. In his 18th year, King Josiah sent the scribe Shaphan, son of Azaliah, son of Meshullam, to the house of the father with these orders: "Go to the high priest Hilkiah and have him calculate the valuables that have been brought to the house of the father, which the doorkeepers have collected from the people. Then have him turn them over to the master workers in the house of the father, and have them give them to the ordinary workers who are in the house of the father to repair its breaches, and to the carpenters, the builders, the masons, and to purchase wood and hewn stone. No reckoning shall be asked of them regarding the funds provided to them, because they hold positions of trust." The high priest Hilkiah informed the scribe Shaphan, "I have found the book of the law in the temple of the father." Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan, who read it. Then the scribe Shaphan went to the king, who reported, "Your servants have smelted down the silver deposited in the temple, and have turned it over to the master workers in the house of the father." The scribe Shaphan also informed the king, "Hilkiah the priest has given me the book book, and then Shaphan read it in the presence of the king. When the king heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his garments. The king then issued this command to Hilkiah the priest, Ahikam, son of Shaphan, Akbar, and Micaiah, Shaphan the scribe, and Asaiah, the king's servant, go consult the king for me, for the people, and for all Judah about all the works of the book that have been found. For the rage of the Father has been set furiously ablaze against us, because our ancestors did not obey his words of the book, nor do what was written for us. So Hilkiah the priest, Ahikam, Akbar, Shaphan, and Asaiah went to Huldah the prophet, wife of Shallum, son of Tikvah, son of Harhas, keeper of the wardrobe. She lived in Jerusalem in the second quarter. When they had spoken to her, she said to them, Thus saith the Father, the God of Israel, Most High, say to the man whom sent you to me, Thus saith the Father, I am about to bring evil upon this place and upon its inhabitants, all the works of the book which the king of Judah has read, because they have abandoned me and have burned incense to other gods, provoking me by all the works of their hands. My rage is ablaze against this place, and it cannot be extinguished. But to the king of Judah who sent you to consult the Father, give this response, Thus saith the Father, Most High, I am the God of Israel. As for the words you have heard, because you were heartsick and have humbled yourself before the Father, when you heard what I have spoken concerning this place and its inhabitants, that they would become a desolation and a curse, and because you tore your garments and wept before me, I in turn have heard, oracle of the Father, I will therefore gather you to your ancestors. You shall go to your grave in peace, and your eyes shall not see all the evil I am about to bring upon this place. This they reported to the king. Chapter 23. The king then had all the elders of Judah and Jerusalem summoned before him. The king went up to the house of the Father with all the people of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, priests, prophets, and all the people, great and small. He read aloud to them all the words of the book of the covenant that had been found in the house of the Father. The king stood by the column and made a covenant in the presence of the Father to follow the Father and to observe his covenant, statutes, and decrees with whole heart and soul, and to reestablish the word of the covenant written in this book. And all the people stood by the covenant. Josiah's religious reform. Then the king commanded the high priest Hilkiah, his assistant priest, and the doorkeepers to remove from the temple of the Father all the objects that had been made for Baal, Asherah, and the whole host of heaven. These he burned outside Jerusalem on the slopes of the Kidron, and their ashes were carried to Bethel. He also put an end to the idolatrous priests, whom the kings of Judah had appointed to burn incense on the high places in the cities of Judah and in the vicinities of Jerusalem, as well as for those who burned incense to Baal, to the sun, moon, and signs of the zodiac, and to the whole host of heaven. From the house of the Father he also removed the Asherah to the Wadi Kidron outside Jerusalem. He burned it and beat it to dust in the Wadi Kidron, and scattered its dust over the graveyard of the people of the land. He tore down the apartments of the cult prostitutes in the house of the Father, where the women wore garments for the Asherah. He brought in all the priests from the cities of Judah, and then defiled from Jebus to Beersheba the high places where they had offered incense. He also tore down the high places of the gates, which were at the entrance of the gate of Jeshua, governor of the city, north of the city gate. The priests of the high places could not function at their altar of the Father in Jerusalem, but they, along with their relatives, ate the unleavened bread. The king also defiled the Tophet in the valley of Ben Hinnom, so that there would no longer be any immolation of sons or daughters by fire in honor to Molech. He did away with the horses which the kings of Judah had dedicated to the sun. These were the entrance of the house of the Father, near the chamber of Nathan Melech, the official, with which was in the large building. The chariots of the sun he destroyed by fire. He also demolished the altars made by the kings of Judah on the roof terrace of Ahaz, and the altars made by Manasseh in the two courts of the Father's house. He pulverized them and threw their dust into the Wadi Kidron. The king defiled the high places east of Jerusalem, south of the Mount of the Destroyer, which Solomon, king of Israel, had built in honor of Astarte, the Sidonian horror of Shemosh, and the Moabite horror of Milcom, the Ammonites, the abomination. He broke to pieces the pillars, cut down the Asherahs, and filled the places where they had been filled with human bones. Likewise, the altar which was at Bethel, the high place built by Jeroboam son of Nebat, who caused Israel to sin, this same altar and the high place he tore down and burned, grinding the high place to powder and burning the Asherah. When Josiah turned and saw the graves on the mountainside, he ordered the bones taken from the graves and burned on the altar, and thus defiled it according to the father's word proclaimed by the man of the father, as Jeroboam stood by the altar on the feast day. When the king looked up and saw the grave of the man of the father who had proclaimed these words, he asked, "What is that marker I see?" The people of the city replied, "The grave of a